Thank you, Kieran. Thank you so much all for coming to see my talk today. So I'll get cracking because I need the time, so hopefully I won't run over. So my talk, this is it. When SSL fails, tracing the SSL vulnerability to the most shocking real-world impacts. So why am I talking to you about weak ciphers? As you all know, I'm involved in BSides. I'm also a seasoned pen tester, head of pen testing for vertical structure with a background in risk and software engineering. This kind of all started for me when I was about 11 years old. I loved puzzles, and my uncle had had sold a briefcase to a customer and it was locked. So he brought it to me and I proceeded to do a brute force attack against it to get it unlocked. Little did I know at 11 years old that this would be a career for me. In university, in my software engineering degree, I loved cryptography module so much that I went on to do a security master's. As part of my master's, my thesis I did on security protocols and implementation of theoretical secure multi-party computation protocol. This was for blind fair bidding, and it was fairly mathematical and a long time ago, so might not be able to answer questions on it, but maybe someday. So crypto's kind of tricky, but I like it. And when I said about doing this talk, it reminded me how much I enjoy it. And not a lot of people in pen testing dive into it in much depth. There's not as many YouTube demo videos like with everything else in security. As mentioned in my abstract, almost every pen test report delivered has a bunch of SSL issues, at the very least weak ciphers. And there's a reason for that I'll come to later. I've been questioned on these by colleagues and clients and started digging. My Google Foo and other research has come up quite lacking. So this was back before the CFP, a combination of the upcoming call for papers for BSides. And I also had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Geoff White for his new book, Rinsed. I was inspired. So I set out on my mission, investigate why should we care about weak ciphers. Or should we? And do it. Let's have some demo fun. So, first week in my job, like 18 years ago. So I had to put my hand up earlier for Holly. One of the directors said, what can go wrong will go wrong. So hopefully we get through this without too much hassle. First of all, I want to show you some encryption ciphers. So this is what we're looking at when we're testing encryption. For websites anyway. So just to explain a little bit about weak ciphers, when I talk about it, what do I mean? So every website that uses encryption, and this should be all of them now that certificates are free, but unfortunately it's not. All of these websites have configured which encryption ciphers they can use to connect to people can use to connect to the site. When you're connecting to a site, the browser is also configured to use certain encryption ciphers. So when the browser and the website connect, they establish which encryption cipher they're going to connect over. All communications will pass back and forth through. Ideally, this will be completely protected from anyone who can see the traffic. So this is a short list there's many, many, many ciphers out there. The ones that are highlighted in red are considered weak, and the others are not currently considered weak. So just to give you a very quick breakdown, and I'm not going to get into this too much because I don't want to get too technical and because that loses people, especially in crypto. So when you see the TLS, this is this is a protocol in use. Older ones were SSL. DH, DHE or EC, DHE denotes the key exchange algorithm being used. And RSA is the authentication mechanism. AES is the session cipher. 128 or 256 is the encryption key length in bits. That's important. CBC or GSM is the type of encryption. And SHA is the hash function. 256.384 is the digest size of the message. So we'll come back to these a little bit later. We'll see them later on. But for your information, if you see the CBC ones, so the bottom two red ones, these for TLS version 1.2, these are considered to be weak ciphers, but they're probably the strongest of all the weak ciphers. This is due to the CBC cipher blockchaining mechanism or cipher, and that is inherently insecure with lots of issues, but we'll come back to that later. Let's see if this works. So I want to give a quick, well, relatively quick, brief history of SSL and TLS. So for anybody who doesn't know, SSL, Secure Sockets Layer, TLS, Transport Layer Security, this is the protocol that we use for encryption. Two different names, but it's the same thing. So it started before this. SSL version 1 was never released. Then in March 1995, SSL version 2 was shipped in Netscape browsers. Very quickly, there were vulnerabilities discovered. So immediately, SSL vulnerabilities coming out. Same year, in December, SSL version 3 was submitted. A year later, in 1996, the development begins for SSL version 3.1. Microsoft, I believe, applied some pressure and got the name changed to TLS version 1.0. So it's the same thing, new name. Development began in 96. It was released in 99. So it took 3 years and it was released. Then in April 2006, we got TLS version 1.1. In August 2008, we got TLS 1.2. And then we saw in March 2011, SSL version 2 was deprecated. Then we started to see a lot of kind of high-profile attacks. The Beast attack in June 2011 exploited predictable initialization vectors in the encryption. The crime attack in September 2012 exploited TLS compression. And then we can see in November 2012, the industry started to try and bring in some mechanisms and measures to help protect the encryption, and they brought in the HSTS, HTTP. I know this, and I knew I'd blank on it. Anyway, HSTS and the Content Security Policy, CSP, as measures that people could use to help protect. And then very quickly in 2013, we saw Lucky 13 attacks, issues with RC4. RC4 ciphers were now considered dead, broken, and the breach attack. So in August the same year, then TLS version 1.3 development began. And TLS version 1.3 is our current strongest version of TLS. April 2014, Heartbleed attack came out. I'll show this later on. September 2014, Cloudflare began to release free certificates. And in October 2014, the Poodle attack hit SSL version 3. At this point, very few people were using SSL version 3, so it was quite easy for companies to disable and not as big an impact as it could have been. However, then in December 2014, the TLS Poodle attack was released and discovered that it was not just affecting SSL. So in February 2015, then RC4 was prohibited from use because it's that broken. In May 2015, the Logjam attack was released. In June 2015, SSL version 3 was deprecated. In November, Let's Encrypt started issuing free certificates with automated issuance. So that was more progress in terms of getting all of the sites encrypted and using better security. In March 2016, then we had the Drown attack. August 2016, Suite 32. There are many other attacks as well that I haven't listed here just for brevity, but these are kind of the big ones that I thought were important to include. In January 2017, then SHA-1 was deprecated, seemingly before it had been exploited. But 1 month later, SHA finally failed and Shattered was released. That broke it. So March 2018, then TLS version 1.3 standard was proposed. We're still not there yet. And TLS in 2018, TLS version 1.0 was deprecated. In August 2018, TLS version 1.3 was finally released. This was 10 years following the previous TLS version 1.2. And then in June 2020, Chrome and Firefox browsers stopped supporting TLS version 1.0 and TLS 1.1 because of issues. And in September, IE followed very quickly. So we're left with TLS version 1.2 and TLS version 1.3. Currently, there are no known issues with any of the TLS version 1.3 ciphers, but there are some weak ciphers in TLS 1.2. However, we do still see them a lot, hence all of the findings in reports for pen testing. And there's some good reasons for that. They're required to support older browsers. So if people are using an old phone, an Android 10 phone or something like that, they need to connect to a website. They can't connect unless the website supports some of these older ciphers, because the browser's just configured to use those and not updated. So that's an issue for all organizations. Depending on their customer base, depending on what devices they're trying to connect with, computers they're trying to connect with, if they need to support it, they need to support it. So there is an element of risk, but we'll move on there. I've referenced at the bottom here, and I can share these afterwards and share the links, but Ivan Ristic wrote a book. Is it Ivan? Yeah. SSL, bulletproof SSL and TLS, and he has online a really, really detailed timeline that I used as a reference, but he's got loads of stuff in it that's really cool and definitely worth a look. A lot of information about certificate authority compromises that I was thinking, oh, that would be a really good talk, but that's for another day. So, okay. So what I really wanted to do, inspired by Geoff's book, and he tells some really, really cool stories about high-profile hacks and crimes, and I really wanted to link, could I find a link somewhere along the chain of what happened in those attacks to weak encryption ciphers, to make it real, to bring it home for my clients. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to, with the information that I had access to, interviews that I did with people. It's possible that there are links, and I just wasn't able to get into that depth of those attacks at the time. They're really interesting, and I'm plugging the book because I really loved it, but I'm not going to talk about them here. So I didn't find that. However, some high profile hacks, for example, the TJX company's breach, the attackers were able to crack RC4 based web encryption, allowing them to steal over 45 million credit and debit card numbers. And the breach went undetected for nearly a year, causing significant financial damage. We know RC4 is really broken and prohibited from use. We're not quite there yet with some of the later ciphers, but maybe it's only a matter of time. Similarly, Tampa South Florida University had weak RC4 ciphers enabled that enabled attackers to access sensitive data and student information. Most heinous crimes, there's a lot of stuff Geoff talks about in his book about money laundering, not really related to encryption. So we'll move on from that. So overwhelmingly from all of my research, my interviews, speaking to people, talking about crimes and walking through them, it's the path of least resistance for criminals. We all know that, the house with the alarm is less of a target than the one without. So business email compromise is overwhelmingly the first route of entry to an organization with most attacks and phishing. For websites, we're thinking about outdated software with known vulnerabilities or authentication weaknesses. So at this point in my research, I was like, great. Well, is that it? Is that the end? And then I started thinking, well, maybe when all the other doors are closed, there's nothing left. The attackers are forced to look at something a bit harder, like the encryption. So we're talking about high value targets, something that's worth the effort that's required to decrypt a chunk of data. Nation state hackers, I have it on good authority, but wasn't able to get any information, unfortunately, that this is happening with nation state levels. Banks, governments, that's kind of who would care a little bit more about this, I believe. So should we care? It's really hard to do. There's no practical attacks except for the older ones. There's usually easier methods and probably not worth the effort for a lot of systems. But it's not a problem until it is, like we saw with all of the other attacks. So to quote CryptoPals, CryptoPals is a fantastic resource online. CryptoPals.com is referenced below, where you can go in and do a bunch of crypto challenges and step through them. It requires a little bit of coding, but it's really fun. as with a lot of people in the industry, will say the systems that we're relying on today aren't known to be fatally broken, but they're in a state of just waiting to be fatally broken. So it is only a matter of time. We could see in the timeline that the SHA-1 was deprecated before it was officially broken. The likes of CBC, or with the likes of Poodle, for example, initially it was just SSL that was vulnerable, then it was TLS. The attacks evolve, and it is only a matter of time. So let's have a look and see how easy Heartbleed was to exploit, just for example. I would have liked to have done more of them, but I ran out of time, so we're going to have to stick with this. I'm also going to attempt a live demo here, so bear with me. I don't know if I can get this up on that screen. Okay. This is going to be tricky. Can't see it on my screen. Whoa. Okay, so for this example, I'm using... this is so awkward. I'll maybe not do this. BWAP, which is an OWASP project for a vulnerable web application that also has the server configured with weak SSL. So I'll just, if I can do this backwards, oh my gosh. Right, so the first step that I want to do is run a testing tool called testssl.sh to see if the site is vulnerable. So, show you. And forgive me, tab is not working properly for me on this laptop. 8443. That is going to take a little bit of time to run, so I'm going to show you the output first. Here. So you get all of the output in the terminal, but it also, the flag away outputs in multiple formats. Why is that not working? Oh yeah. Come back. Other screen. Right. So this is the output here. This is really, really good tool, and it's really helpful for pen testers. So, because it shows everything so clearly. It's color coded. How easy is that? SSL version 2 not offered. That's okay. SSL version 3 offered, not okay. SSL version 1 offered, deprecated, not okay. SSL 1.1 offered, not okay. TLS version 1.2 offered, okay. TLS version 1.3. So for all of these, the output that you get, it runs through each of the protocols. These are the protocols that we've got, and checks which ones are supported by the website. Then below here, we look at the types of ciphers offered. Not the actual ciphers, the types. So here we can see these triple DES ciphers are offered, and that's not good. And obsolete CBC ciphers, we were talking about cipher blockchaining earlier, offered, not okay. Then below here, we've got the testing server's cipher preference. Okay, so we've got each of the protocols again. Where's my... Each of the protocols. SSL v2, nothing is supported. SSL v3, these are the specific ciphers that are supported. No server order, so the server can be configured to have a preference order. This is not, and that's not great. TLS version 1 ciphers that are listed here, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 is not supported. Okay, a bunch of other really useful information down here that you can flick through, different issues with the algorithms offered. You just basically look for the red. SHA-1 signature is used, which is not good. Issues with the certificate, chain of trust, certificate is expired, not okay, not okay. Down here we look at specific vulnerabilities are called out. So the Heartbleed, it's vulnerable to Heartbleed. So we're going to demo that. It's vulnerable to CCS. That's change cipher spec messaging injection. I'm not going to be showing you that today. Insecure renegotiation is okay. Poodle is vulnerable to, and a bunch of other issues, logjam, beast, etc. Okay, so that's kind of nice output that you get from this. Where am I? Here. Okay. So that still hasn't run yet. Not sure why there's such a delay with that, but I'm going to move on. So the next thing that we're going to do is run nmap. So nmap is another pen testing tool that we use. This is to confirm the vulnerability in a different way. So this is, if we find Heartbleed is listed, then we can use this to check that it actually is SSL Heartbleed -sv -p 8443. I'm going to regret this. 192.168.48.130. So that's running. I'm not sure how long that's going to take. So I'm just going to kill this off because we've looked at the results. We don't need it. That's going to spit out the results too. In the interest of time, I'm just going to move on. We'll come back to it. So the next thing I want to show you is actually running the exploit script. So, spoiler alert, it is vulnerable. Can't spell. Can't type backwards. Python 2. Heartbleed. So, what this exploit script does is it sends a malformed request to the server that specifies a length field larger than the actual payload and causes the server to return additional memory. So we're pulling memory from the server. Before I run this, I need to just jump into the server to log in so that there's something in memory. Okay, so refresh that. We're going to log in. Bug. Okay, we're in. Right, so let's run this script. Port 8443, 192.168.40.130. Let's have a look. Fail. Try again. Here we go. So this is the memory leaked. Just have to scroll up to the top to show you what we've got. Hopefully we've got some information we can use in here. Yeah. Let's pull that screen out a bit. Come on. Yeah. Okay. Can I not resize this? Hold on. Stupid computer. Okay. So anyway, here we've got, you can kind of half see it. Apologies for the screen cut off here, but here is the URL for the website. Here is the PHP session token. And then here we've got the login username and password. Can't really see it there. We'll probably see it in the next demo. So it's that easy, right? So then the next thing I want to do is clear that. And we'll run Metasploit. So this is another tool we can use to attack it. And we'll go back and check this here. So here we can see the results from the nmap scan shows on port 8443, it is vulnerable to the Heartbleed vulnerability. So we'll go back in here. Metasploit is up and running. Almost. There we go. So we're going to search Heartbleed, and we're going to use this OpenSSL Heartbleed. So use auxiliary scanner OpenSSL. OpenSSL SSL. SSL, open SSL, Heartbleed. Okay. Right, show options. Okay, so we scroll up. This is so tricky to do. Right, so here we've got to just set the remote hosts to our target and the remote port. So set our hosts to 192.168.30.40.130, 40.130. Set port or port to what was it? 8443. Okay, and show actions. It's on scan, so run. Okay, so then I'm going to set action to dump. Run. Okay, and this gives us a bin file. So we'll copy this. Copy and paste that in here. Okay, we're going to use strings because it's a bin file. We want to get some useful information out of it. Strings. Paste. Hold on. / paste selection. That's not what I meant to do. It's not what I meant to copy. Copy backwards. Right. Copy selection. Strings. Paste selection. And this pulls out, you can see really clearly this time, the URL is from the referrer header. The cookie is the session cookie there, and the login, B and bug, username and password. So that was so easy, right? So let's move on. If I can get my screen back. Where's my mouse? There we go. Okay, so that was easy, right? That's my video. Whoa, move on. So I also promised some practical takeaways. So you have seen me run SSL Labs. No, you haven't seen me run. So there's a couple of different things we can do here. We can run SSL Labs that's available online for everybody. I'll show you that quickly. Run test SSL, which is my preferred tool as pen tester. And we can run OpenSSL commands manually to verify things and check the certificate manually. So very quickly, SSL Labs, you browse to sslabs.com. I'll not do this demo because we don't have time. Put in your website. Don't forget to tick do not show the results on the boards. So I've put in verticalstructure.com. We get this kind of a result, a nice A+ rating. I can't run SSL Labs on the vulnerable server that I have because it's not accessible to the internet. So then my screenshot didn't paste there. Sorry about that. So here on the left, ignore the text on the right. Testssl.sh, we run the command at the top and we get that kind of output. But you've seen that already, and you've seen what was supposed to be on the right was supposed to be the output from the vulnerable app with the different colors. So then manually verifying. We look at the website. If we browse to the website directly, we'll get a certificate error. How many people get certificate errors and just ignore them? Most of the browsers won't let you ignore them so easily anymore, but here we can see we can open up the certificate and get all the information about it in there. We can also use OpenSSL commands, OpenSSL s_client connect to see if we can connect, and then we can run these commands. The head and or is for the testing the insecure renegotiation. So basically you connect, then you enter the head string there, followed by or, hit return. And it sometimes, well, if it's configured correctly, it will just kill the connection. Sometimes it will let you do it multiple times. If it lets you do it more than 5 times, it's insecure renegotiation. So then below, there's some commands there to show running OpenSSL connect to see if the first one is to see if null ciphers could be supported, and that it failed, I think. Can't see that properly. And then the next one was triple des ciphers, so that connected and showed the results below. So first of all, I just want to say, how do we protect against it? So disabling weak ciphers is the best way to not have that issue. However, as I mentioned earlier, to support legacy ciphers, we can't always disable weak ciphers. So many companies are hamstrung by the use of legacy browsers, and they have to support them. Also, certificate providers like Cloudflare charge a premium for like enterprise fee level to be able to support some of the stronger weak ciphers. So yes, that's it. That's me. Hope you got something from it today. I think maybe don't have time for questions. No. So, but I am here all day. I'm here for breaks. I'm happy to talk about crypto. And if you know loads about it and want to share information with me, I would love to hear it. So thank you very much, everybody.